Just by round of applause, who had never seen that before? Congratulations. Well, we don't want to belabor this any longer. Like we said, Barry couldn't be here, but he did send a close personal friend of his in his stead. Will you please put your hands together for the hardcore legend, Mr. Mick Foley.
Thank you so much for being here.
I had 1 day's notice, right?
1 day notice.
Yeah. I want to be honest with all of you. Barry's got a real bad diagnosis, and his wife reached out to me, whether it was 1 day ago or 2 days ago.
Monday afternoon.
Monday afternoon, and told me about this, and she said, "Is there any way you can make it?" I looked at my schedule, I was like, I have 1 day off this entire month. And so, I just hope you guys, it's an indication of how I feel about Barry, who I met in 1995 when he was thinking about doing this film. And at that time, my role was slotted to be the guy who had a taste of stardom in WCW, was back out on the independent grind. And we've stayed really good friends all these years, and there aren't many people I would fly across the country and back for free for. I'll just tell you what happened is, I got a knock on my door. I was in Las Vegas, and this was a bad motel even by my standards. And I was getting ready to wrestle Sabu off the strip, right? It was like this, it wasn't the silver nugget, it was like the bronze nugget. And it was Barry Bloom, who I only knew because he was Jesse Ventura's agent. Jesse was the first wrestler to have an agent, and he introduced me to Barry Blaustein that night. And then Sabu and I went out there, and I think, we had a really good match. I didn't know you're not supposed to sweep the blackjack table clean of chips so you can pile drive your opponent on it. But that was, that was over 30 years ago. And I've seen the movie maybe 10, 12 years ago, but I haven't seen it on a big screen since 1999. And don't just say this because I'm here, but it's pretty freaking powerful, isn't it? Yeah, it really is.
So once he gets it going in 98 or 97 or whatever, are you helpful in getting him access to the WWF or?
Well, I didn't have anything to do with it. At that time, we were in a big ratings battle with WCW, and I think Mr. McMahon was concerned that if he did not do it, that WCW would have done it.
Right.
And then over time, he didn't like it. He thought it took away from the magic. I thought, he should have been paid for it, but that's not how documentary films All right, I swear, if you guys all put down your cameras here, I'm going to tell you something that came to my mind, okay? We're on a Scout's Honor here.
Knock it down.
He's gonna poop!
You can't have that.
No, don't please. You're gonna be thinking that when you go to bed tonight, right? Somebody was like, geez, I agree, that was a little much.
But once they're doing it though, are they sort of going to people and asking, like, do they want to be involved, or
Barry had he had his heart set on Terry, Jake, and myself, and he said that when he was talking to Vince was like, Mick Foley, really? And Barry's like, I think he's a big star. And then when Barry asked Vince who he would feature, and I'm not saying this, to knock these guys. I'll say up front, Mark Maurer is one of the greatest ex-wrestlers, and he is. I mean, and I don't say that, to be joking about it, but he does a wonderful job talking to students. He goes to an emotional well, every single day and makes a difference in people's lives. I think he's saved people's lives. But he didn't become the wrestler that Vince thought he would, and neither did Ahmed Johnson. But those were the two newer guys that Vince was suggesting to Barry instead of me. And Barry, saw something in me, and then that turned out to be true.
And once you see that footage with your family after the fact, and is it sort of a situation, when the doctor's like, gotta stop eating these snacks, and you're like, yeah, I definitely do. And then a little while later, you're right back eating the snacks. Were you like, I gotta change? Do you think you changed at all?
Speaking of snacks, I believe I'm quite a bit lighter now than I was. And this is a takeaway that I had going back many years. I think I was showing signs of slurring my speech even back then. And I think I'm actually doing better now than I was, thank God. I retired almost as many times as Terry did, but, it got to the point where I recognized, maybe a little bit too late, that I couldn't do the things I wanted to do, but that was one of my takeaways. It was like, wow, I was heading down a tough road at the time. And I think, I'm grateful. I don't think I was doing myself any favors with that button-down shirt and pair of swim trunks either. I've come a long way in a fashion sense, right?
Did you put that on for the camera, or is that how you normally hung out?
Well, the button-down shirt was me dressing up for the camera.
I tell you, I think that was my question, because especially the note that the movie ends on, do you feel like your family did have the last laugh?
But I'm still out there. I was on the road for 330 days last year. It was busier than, the difference is, there's Barry Bloom right there. So, Barry's been my manager for 26 years. You were not my manager when you knocked on the door with Barry Glauskin, but man, we've had a great relationship. And another thing people might know is Jake Roberts' daughter, not the daughter we saw in the movie. His daughter Cody's been my agent for 6 years. Oh, wow. Yeah, she books the one-man shows, and I'm not just saying this as a plug. But I've only got 5 of these shows left on the 40 Years of Foley tour. I'm coming to Brea at the Improv on April 21st. And the reason I'm saying it's not just a plug is because one of the greatest moments of my life, not just my career, my life, was that I have one story that I tell that I repeat from the last tour. And it's my favorite story about Terry Funk. And I had Brandy and Stacy in the crowd, and I looked out and they were weeping. And afterwards I said to Stacy, I said, when I tell that story, I feel like your dad's there with me on stage. And she said, Cactus, that's because he is there with you on stage. And that's one of the joys of my life is every night I do the show, I get to bring Terry back to life on stage. And I never fail to get goosebumps when I tell that story. So I hope some of you will come out and see me. We're raising money for Brian Knobs, auctioning the shirt off my back at every stop. And we're actually doing a show on June 8th in Tampa where 100% of the proceeds we'll go to Knobs, who's a great guy, who's in a tough situation. And I think we all have to look out for each other. It's a tough business, and I like to think if I was in his shoes that people would be looking out for me.
Can you still ride roller coasters?
Unfortunately, because of the head injuries, I can't do anything that moves me side to side. I can go on like the mine train at Disneyland or Disney World. I can do certain things, I can go fast, but I can't do anything that moves me laterally. So I think I retired from the coaster riding distance with 168 to my credit. But some of you know, a lot of you in this audience might know, I have a son on the autism spectrum. And with Mickey, I really learned to stop and smell the roses, because we'd get off a ride, we'd go on, Mickey, what ride do you want to do? Oh, I want to ride choo-choo train. We get off the train and I say, what ride do you want to do now, buddy? He'd say, I want to ride choo-choo train. And you realize, like, if you're at Disneyland, it's not about how many rides you do, just like in a match, because I bring everything back to wrestling. It's not about how many moves you do, it's when you do them and why. And so I still love going to parks. I just observe and I watch and I try to have fun with my kids, who are all adults now. So
It's gotta be a trip seeing your two oldest so small, right?
yeah, it reminds me of John Candy in Home Alone, where he talks about being left alone in a funeral home. Yeah, the kids are resilient. Yeah, he came around, started talking after a couple of weeks. But the big, you know, I don't mean to take this lightly, but you heard The Rock say, "Are you going to Disneyland tomorrow?" And we did return to Disneyland. No, I'm sorry. We went to Disneyland the day of that show and the day before. Originally, the plan was, that's why I said you're going to Disneyland tomorrow, because they were supposed to stay. And I think psychologically, if instead of going to Disneyland and then watching Dad get the crap beaten out of him, if I'd come backstage and they said, "Mick Foley, did you get hit by the Rock 11 times? What are you gonna do?" "I'm going to Disneyland." It would have been a different feel emotionally.
Yeah. Do you remember being mad at The Rock?
You know what? He was a little casual about it, but and you know what's funny is I use that as fuel for the potential. The Rock and Sock connection was put together with the idea of me turning on The Rock as soon as I gained his trust. And in the same way, I used the Kane Dewey promo from ECW to create a real animosity on a certain level. I mean, it was a love-hate relationship with ECW fans. I was going to hold on to that, and then after years, I was like, I could have acted mad, right? Like I didn't actually have to be mad at him. And it was Scotty 2 Hotty who watched the 10th anniversary episode that Jesse Ventura and I did commentary on. And he was like, "Man, I watched that with my wife." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You kind of married The Rock." I was like, "I did." He goes, "Yeah, you did." And so I really believe, not just men, but decent human beings, you talk to each other about these things. So I went over as soon as I heard that and talked to him. And then I saw him a couple weeks later. He said he sat down with his wife, Danny, who is no longer his wife, but she still produces his projects. It's like one of the greatest ex-marriages that I've ever had. He was at her second wedding. Like, it really is a beautiful thing that it is. And he said, "Man, I wanted to be mad at you, but I could have, And then he said, I know I would have, but if you remember, Rock had to return to be in the Rumble because Vince was debuting as a wrestler, and Rock had to go back there. But I got over it just in the nick of time, because if I was still angry at him, he was the biggest star on the planet. Yeah, that might sting a little bit.
Sure.
And that's why I find my grudge against Al Snow to be so much more.
Don't worry. Did you ever do promos in Paulie's parents' basement?
Oh yeah. I mean, in one sitting, one outing, we did Kane Dewey, Uncle Willie, and one other one that didn't really stand the test of time. But it was a way of it was an outlet for me. And as a matter of fact, when I cut those 3 promos, I dropped Colette and the children off at a park. And then when I came out about 90 minutes later, it was like therapy. It really was. It was very therapeutic for me to get that kind of frustration out and hopefully, create a lasting impression in the process.
Was it the pull it to right field promo?
No, that was a good promo though, wasn't it?
Oh,
that was, because that one was about, a legend of the business saying I was going to be in a wheelchair by the time I was 30,
right.
And then drawing a parallel between playing it safe and creeping past the 30-year mark and going back to when I was a child. And the Dawes lived 3 doors down, and they had all the Daw children were really good athletes. And Tom Daw used to literally stand on our fence because I used to pull the wiffle ball every single time. I was a righty, so I'd pull it to left field, and he was grabbing my home runs. and I was bursting into tears. And when my mom told me I might want to think about hitting it to a different part of the field where Tom Dahl wasn't, even when I was 5 years old, I was like, that would be cheating, you know. I was like, and so I'm glad you remember that, because that's not
I
one
used
that,
to watch that in college
Yeah.
during finals to psych
Really?
myself up.
That's not even one that most people would recall. You guys really do know your wrestling. Wow.
Now, was that the house you grew up in?
Yeah, it sure was. Yeah, so if you'd gone out into the backyard, you would have seen the fence that Tom Dahl stood on. Home runs.
And what was your dad had a big collection of New York Times in the basement?
My dad.
Do we want to call it a collection?
That's such a funny video. It should not record this. Barry's concerned that people might think my dad was a bad dad, and that's why he made sure that you saw that interview there where he referred to me as always being polite. Yes, he wanted to show that closeness. But part of the reason, the biggest reason my dad didn't want us wrestling down there is because like his hidden secret, I even said in like the Have a Nice Day book, like there were no like photos of my dad in the late '60s with pork chops, sideburns, or bell bottoms. But his one flaw was that he held on to newspapers that were 20 years old until his dying day, saying he was going to read them someday. It really was, and they were just like like musty, pulpy, leaning towers of Pisa. And at a certain point, we did have to stop going over there because I was afraid the children could be injured, like by the stacks of newspapers. Yeah. So maybe it's better that we didn't go down to the basement. But that was a little 1,200 square foot home, and I thought I had it made. And I don't know how many of you know this. I just recently purchased a new home. It's not a new home, it's an early 1800s log cabin. Yeah, and it's about 1,200 square feet with a loft, no basement, no garage. So if any of you are looking for memorabilia, I believe in a year or so, I'm gonna have to let just about everything go. No place to put it. Really? Is he a collector?
Oh, don't tell Adam Page, that's what I meant.
Hangman's a big collector of
No,
memorabilia?
he likes burning people's houses down.
What do I not know about this conversation?
He did an angle.
Oh, okay, all right. Oh, sorry, man. My bad. Yeah, I haven't watched in a little while.
Sorry. Any other?
I mean, I think the question on everybody's mind is, does Paul Heyman still owe you money?
No, he never did owe me money.
Really?
No, he never did owe. I think we started having financial difficulties. After I left, like there were people being
Makes
called
sense.
the ECW originals who were there 4 years after I was there. So I mean, like Terry was really in on the ground floor, and I think Paul did a great job of conveying just how valuable he was. Like he was the guy, and his willingness to do the right thing and make other stars. You learn from the people who are around you in a world where you can be either a giver or a taker. I learned from Terry Funk about the beauty of giving, and so when I watch other men and women on TV who take the same amount of pride in that, I hope that I had a hand in some of their careers too. But Terry was by far the biggest influence in my career, not only as a wrestler. My wife did say at one time, Mick, perhaps you could have found a different role model, right? Especially when we were doing our thing in Japan. But wow, I might be walking a little better, but my life would have been so much less, valuable.
Sure.
He was the best, man. And it was really nice. I don't think many people knew I was here. A handful of you saw me coming in, and just to absorb the laughter, like, that you wouldn't see, you wouldn't feel it. It's like we're in a community here. And I was sitting in the back row, and as soon as Terry came on the screen, you gave him such a nice, warm round of applause. And it is crazy, like Barry says, that people who did the wildest stuff, were often. I'm going to segue here into a phone call I received from Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. Right? I'm doing what somebody might refer to as the weave here. So I'm not gonna mention his name though. And Dee and I got to be really good friends, you know, and for a while, in the mid-80s, he was like every parent's nightmare. He calls me and I said, Mick, Dee. I said, how you doing, Dee? He goes, hey, do you think that some of the crazy stuff you did in the ring, you know, allows you to embrace some of the gentler things in life? I said, yeah, I think it does. He goes, yeah, me too. Good talking. Yeah. So I feel like, you know, my kids are like, Dad, you know, why don't you hunt and fish? You're sitting over here scrapbooking. I was like, you know, if I have to prove my man credentials, I've got like 300 hours of me doing stuff on video. While you're watching that, I'll be over here scrapbooking. So,
When the 40 years tour ends, will you write a whole new show? Or what was
yeah. I mean, I'll come back out. You know, the idea is, remember, I'm Terry Funk's protege. The idea is in 2028, you know, I'm going to take a couple of years off and then come back with the final tour. But I love doing them. I do, and I think it's really valuable and important for someone. You know, I have had a lot of trauma, head injuries, and when I get out there, it really keeps me sharp. And as crazy as it sounds, and I know, and this is not a promo for my cameo videos, but I try to make each one of them different and try to make every single person feel like there's no place I'd rather be than in front of that phone doing that video. It makes me get creative, you know. And so I've written about 12 different birthday songs to the tunes of other songs. And I don't know if you have a sound guy back there, but if you can cue up the karaoke version of My Way by Frank Sinatra, I'll give you like 1 minute. If it happens, okay? If it happens, right? But don't let that stop me from you asking questions. Don't let me stop you.
Anything?
I mean, this isn't even a question, it's just, this is a dream come true.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you.
I have watched this movie so many times, and him and we literally, it's become part of my daily vernacular, you know? I mean, half the time I'm just like, can you see the cables behind me? See the cables behind me?
You know, stay away from the Jack in the Boxes. You look at the
Yeah, gotta be. Is anyone else concerned about the length of Vince's sports coat?
And the bottle of ketchup behind him is just.
I've watched this movie dozens of times, and it was the first time I ever noticed the bottle of ketchup behind Vince in his office. And I'm like, of course. Do you have a favorite Vince story? Something uplifting, maybe? I'm always curious with guys who work for him, because he could, like, one-on-one. I don't know if I mentioned this. I wrote there for a couple of years.
Oh, did you really?
I used to email to Dewey a lot.
Yeah, Dewey was a hard worker.
Dewey was the best.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of the in-ring promos for the NXT people who were big stars now. But one of the things I really enjoyed is even when the other talent didn't know I was watching, I would look at the way the talent interacted with my son.
Mm-hmm.
They really respected him. And Finn Balor, when I was like 3 or 4 times to go, wow, I really like it. And I wasn't close with Finn, I like him, but I'm not like a close friend. He'd go out of his way to tell me how good Dewey was to work with. All right, this is one of my favorite Vince stories. It's been, I've told it before, I think I wrote about it, but I only do like 3 decent voices. Terry Funk's one of them. I do a semi-decent Stallone, and I do a pretty good Vince. So I had found out what my name was supposed to be a couple days before my second meeting with him. And I wasn't supposed to be told, but at least I had a backup plan. So he looked at me and said, "Would you like to hear your name, pal?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "In this business, we've had crushers, we've had destroyers, we've even had executioners, but we've never had a mutilator." And that's what you are. And then he threw the name Mason the Mutilator. And he said, "What do you think, pal?" And I nodded, knowing full well I hated the name. And I said, "I like it." I like it a lot. And then the two of the most important words, but, not including but, what if? What if, instead of Mason the Mutilator, I was Mankind the Mutilator? He said, I'm not sure I understand. I said, well, that way we're not just talking about a person, but a people as well. The future of mankind, the destruction of mankind. He had a yellow legal pad, and I kept throwing ideas out at him about having a separate set of exit music. And when I got to WrestleMania, which was more of a weekend than a week now, you know, and I had nothing to do. I was premiering the day after Mania, so I just sat in a hotel room overlooking the parking lot at Disneyland before they did the big renovation. And my information packet just said Mutilator. That was it. And I did not even know my name until I debuted on Raw the day after WrestleMania. I wrestled Bob Holly, and I came down the aisle, and I heard Howard Finkel say, coming down the aisle, Mankind. No Mutilator, no Mason, and then I defeated Bob with a mandible claw, and in comes the gentle piano music. And he, when I asked him, when I said I wanted a separate set of exit music, he said, welcome. I said, because only causing human suffering would put mankind's heart at ease. He wrote in his tablet. So I don't begrudge anybody who gets their break early. I'm really lucky that I didn't get there for until 12 years into my career, because I felt like what I had to say was important. And a lot of people, like even Farouk, WCW World Champion, and he goes, I don't want to imitate Ron Stevens.
Damn.
But he goes, he asked me if Stanley Allen Sherman had made my mask, and I said, yeah. And he goes, yeah, mine too. And I was like, oh man, now I gotta compete with Ron Simmons. And he said, let me show it to you. And he brought out that blue helmet. And all I could think of is, why didn't you say no? Why didn't you say no? One of the worst ideas I've ever seen. But again, like Jim Cornette, it said, like, I was able to make that character work because I had a lot of freedom to do it. Whereas Leon White came into WWE maybe 6 months earlier, and they confused him so much. They tried to, fix something that wasn't broken. And, I didn't have that problem. They let me create on my own, so I was given that kind of freedom that he wasn't. And again, the time I had in the business was really valuable to me.
Why do you suppose that was? I mean, do you think it was maybe the people who were politicking, like the people who maybe weren't so hot on Vader?
Yeah.
Did they see you as maybe, well, he's doing something else, maybe it's not a threat to what I'm doing?
Well,
or?
you know what, I have never had this verified, but I really believe The Undertaker was just tired of wrestling people who were bigger than him. Like that was, because he's a dead man, he's got telepathy and all these things. And so he just kept throwing giants at him. And I believe it was Undertaker who, I have never confirmed it. I just believe he went to the powers that be, which would be Vince, and said, I want to work with someone who can get into my head. And that turned out to, when I showed up in Milwaukee for my first pay-per-view, and I found out I was going over, I was like waiting for Ashton Kutcher to come jumping out of a bush or something. Because I had no doubt in my mind that I'm losing, I'm going to do it as well as I can, I'm going to slowly work my way down the card and have like a couple of year run here. And I didn't know, I had no idea. But I'm going to give you one more little Vince story that I didn't find out until 15 years after the fact. Because Jim Ross was my biggest proponent. He really was. I owe so much to Jim for going to bat with me. And Bruce Pritchard said in the fall of 1995, after Jim had brought my name up for the umpteenth time, that Mr. McMahon slammed his hand down on the table and, all right, damn it, I'll bring him in, but I'm covering up his face. He didn't think I looked like a star.
Well, I have a favorite question I always ask wrestlers.
Sure.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, wow. Yeah, the original Rocky. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You recorded it the night you won.
I did. Big Daddy. You know what's funny? I was just at a convention. And, you wanna read that?
Big Daddy-O did it.
They were making like tags that people collected with sayings, and that wasn't one that was, largely attributed to me, but that was what I said on the night the channels changed.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
It was a big night in wrestling.
Well, we put some butts in the seats tonight, man. New York Times bestselling author.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it.